Hello, hello! Welcome back to the Big Sew Along. I'm Ginny, and I am, as always, thrilled that you guys have taken a moment to stop by and see what we're doing this week on the Big Sew Along. I am doing a couple of things just for channel sort of like updates. Going forward, I'm going to try to list the next 4 sew-alongs, the patterns, and any websites or anything like that that you might need to get a hold of them. I'm going to link in the description box below, and they'll just be listed with dates for the next 4. So, not counting today's, I'll have 4 more. That way, if anybody wants to sew along with me, maybe it'll give you a little bit more chance to like get the patterns and whatever you need to sew along. I would love that because this is the Big Sew Along, so I should help you be prepared to sew along. Anyway, the other thing is, I think I told you guys, like in the Friday sews, or I can't remember when, last week sometime, I talked about starting a blog where I was gonna like share pictures and stuff, and it just turns out that I'm not a blogger. I can't do that. I just do not have the patience, you guys. I'm like a jumping bean. It takes too much time. But what I am going to do, so completely ignore the blog. Don't go looking for the blog. What I am going to do this week is set up a separate Facebook page for the Big Sew Along where I can share my additional photos with you guys. I can answer any questions, and also if you guys are sewing along, it would be a good place so you guys could share with me so the rest of us can see what you're doing too. I feel like that interaction is more my speed. Okay, so I have a big sew along today, so I can't talk for long. Today we are doing the 2 pegs. This is a pattern by Pearl Red Moon. This is the first pattern I have ever sewn by Pearl, although I've been looking at her things for a long time. Pearl is an artist out of Australia. She has, if you guys can hear that, it's not my stomach, that's my dog. She's like snoring under the ironing board. Anyway, Pearl, yeah, she's an artist from Australia. You should for sure follow her on Instagram so you can see the really cool stuff that she does with her own patterns and with different fabrics, and the way she embellishes and changes fabric and stuff. Her stuff is very cool. I will, if I can, link to her Instagram below, I will, but otherwise just look for Pearl Red Moon on Instagram, and I will definitely link to her website and also her Etsy page below. So, the 2 pegs, she has a variety of patterns. She has several patterns. A friend of mine has made the Finny, I think I saw the Finny, and what's the other one she's made? The Zambezi. So I've seen both of those made up, and they're both very cool. The 2 pegs, let me give you a description here. Now, before I go any further, so I don't see it on here now, and maybe I'm wrong, but I think that you can make this dress in either knits or wovens. Don't hold me to that. I thought I saw that on here. And I know that a lot of her designs you can make in either a knit or a woven, but I don't see it now. So maybe I'm just missing it now, or maybe I imagined it before. The rest of this pattern, let me just tell you what the description says. This is a woman's pullover dress with square neck and bell-shaped silhouette. The front dress is divided into 3 panels, and there are 2 options for making the panels, either curved or with right angles. The curved panel version is referred to as round peg and is view 1. The right angle panel version is called square peg and is view 2. It has optional inset pockets in the side seams. The sleeves have an option to be made either short or like 3/4 length. The back of the dress has a center seam, a kick pleat at the hemline, and it doesn't say this here, but it also has fisheye darts in the back. The neckline edge is neatened with an internal yoke facing that is sewn to the sleeve head seam so that the neckline will always stay neat, sharp edged, and never roll. The PDF prints at home on 48 pages, or copy shop files included for printing on A0 size pages, and those would require 3 pages for that. 13 pages of detailed step-by-step instructions with diagrams, including cutting layouts, etc., etc., etc. Small, medium, large sizes nested together. Finished length from the shoulder is 122 centimeters or 48 inches. I shortened my dress 2 inches. I probably should have shortened it another 2 inches. The only other alteration I did was to leave out the back darts. I just did that because I have a hard time with waistline darts hitting me in the wrong place, and because I had not made this dress before, I wasn't really sure where they were going to fit, and I didn't really feel like they were all that necessary for me because I don't have a very big difference between my bust and my waist, or between my waist and my hip. I'm very straight up and down. If you're curvy, you are probably going to want those darts. You'll just need to figure out, and they're probably fine where they are on most people. I just happen to be short with a very high waist, so I just eliminated them purely for purposes of ease. Okay, so let's get to the sew along. I'm going to go through the whole sew along, and then we'll come back and talk a little bit more. Let's go over our pieces for the 2 pegs. Piece number 1 is this left side front piece. And you'll have one of these. It's not cut double, it's just one piece. Piece number 2 is the left front insert, also not cut double, it's just the one piece. Piece number 3 is the right side front. It starts here at the shoulder and goes all the way down this way, and then on the left side of this we have this angle that comes out this way, so it's quite a large piece. Again, you're just cutting that a single layer of that. It does have some notches, make sure you get those. Okay, piece number 4 is the back panel, and I'm going to do the same thing because it's pretty long. So again, this is the top all the way down the side to the hem. This one you are gonna cut double. You need 2 of these, and it is not cut on the fold, just so you know. Piece number 5 is the sleeve. Obviously, you're gonna need 2 of those. Number 6 is the right side front neck facing. You need only one of these, so just cut a single layer, but you're also gonna need interfacing for that. And on all the pieces that need interfacing, I've gone ahead and done that. So that's piece number 6. Piece number 7 is the back neck facing that looks like this. Piece number 8 is left side front neck facing. It looks like this. This has a little notch here. Be sure you mark that on your fabric. You're going to need that when we go to put this together. Also interfaced. And then piece number 9 is the pocket bags, and you're going to need 2 pairs of these, so you need 4 pieces. And again, make sure you hit your notches on that. Okay, now to construct this, we're going to start with piece number 2, which you will remember is this really long piece with the I think it is called the right front piece. It's piece number 3. It is the one with this big curve that goes all the way up to the neckline. Sorry, this is a front piece. It goes all the way up to the neckline, and it has this piece over here that shoots out all the way to the other side. Now, we're going to take this is piece number 3. We're going to take piece number 2, which looks like this, and we want to put it right in here. Just like that. And in order to do that, there are a couple of different ways, but I did just learn this one on Linda Lee's YouTube channel last week. I don't know if you can see this, but I have gone ahead and sewn the whole length of this at my 3/8 inch seam allowance. This has 3/8 inch seam allowances all around. At the 3/8 inch seam allowance, I've gone ahead and put a row of basting stitches. Now, I'm not going to bother doing this on the straight edge because we don't need to do any easing there. But here, where our curve is, see if you can see that. So really like here to here, I am going to go ahead and I'm going to put notches in there. Just going to make little slashes all along here. I'm going to make them about 5/8 of an inch apart. Maybe 1/2 inch, maybe 3/4, and I'm gonna go pretty much right up to my basting line. Don't cut the basting line, just go right up to it, which should be also your seam line. And I'm gonna stop right about here where that straightens out again. Okay, now we're gonna take piece number, I think this is piece number 2, the insert, which goes in here. This is right side up. And I'm going to take my curved piece and put it right side down. And I'm just going to go ahead and pin that in. Move this over so you guys can see. So that's right side up. This is right side down. Now when you get down here to where your curve is, your notches are going to spread enough for you to make those edges meet up nicely. Right around that curve. Okay, now we are completely pinned in, and we are just going to go to the sewing machine and sew that entire seam with our 3/8 inch seam allowance. And then you're going to go ahead and finish the seam. The seam allowances on this are only 3/8 of an inch. You can trim them down if you want to, or you will probably be fine just leaving them. So once we have this whole edge sewn, we're going to finish that edge and we're going to press it towards the larger side. On mine you can see it's the printed side, but then you're going to edge stitch right along this seam here all the way down. So once we have these two pieces put together, we still have this panel, the side panel over here, which is piece number 1. That is going to get put in later. So for right now, we're just going to put the whole front aside and we're going to move on to the back. We're going to go down here to the hem and we're going to finish this, just this long edge right here of our kick pleat. And we're going to do that on both pieces. So the next thing we're going to do is just sew our center back seam. And I already have mine pinned, but I just wanted to show you, we're just going to sew the whole way down. And then when we get down here to this kick pleat, we're going to sew over across this flat edge here and back tack here. You're not going to go down that way. We're just going to stop right here. Once you have that center back seam sewn, you're going to press it to one side. And when you do that, you're going to press your kick pleat, both pieces of your kick pleat, to the same side. So it'll be like that. And you're going to press, yeah, you'll press the whole thing. You're not going to, you'll see from the right side how it lines up, but right now you just want to press it this way. Then we're going to hem just this edge of the kick pleat. So just fold it up. I've just folded it up the distance of my serged edge here, but about 1/4 of an inch is fine. Sew that down all the way down. And then from the right side, so you're going to edge stitch all the way down here on the center. And then when you get here, you're going to go right along the top of that stitching on your kick pleat to hold that in place. And just go as far as your kick pleat goes, back tack right there. I usually do a little back tack right here at this turn too, just because you get a little pressure on that point. Now with the right side of our our dress facing, this is the back, right side, so our kick pleat, we're just going to fold this kick pleat to the front, just on the overlapping one, the one on top. I'm going to fold it over like that to the front, and we are going to sew that at 1 1/4 inch. So right here. And you're just going to sew from the fold to the edge of your facing right there. Then the next thing, then we're just going to put that aside for a bit. The next thing we're going to do is take our 3 facing pieces that have all been interfaced. You should have one back a right front and a left front. And we are going to finish the edges, the bottom edges of each of these pieces. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to sew our facings together. We're going to put, this is the back facing, this is the right front facing. We're going to put it right sides together and sew that seam. Then we're going to take this little piece, which is the left front facing, and we're going to pin that to that side. Here is the back of our dress. And we're going to take the right front side and place it face down and sew that seam, that shoulder seam. And then we're going to take the left front piece, which is this one that we didn't sew to the main front piece yet, and we're going to pin that to the left back shoulder. Now we're going to sew those two seams and then also the ones on our facing pieces, and we're going to press all of those seams open. The next thing we're going to do is attach our facing to our main body. And you can see I've just pinned these right sides together. This is my facing, obviously. My dress is under there. We're going to stitch this neckline edge with a 1/4 inch seam allowance only. To here, pivot around here, pivot around here, pivot again. And then you'll see there's a notch right here on our pattern piece. I marked it more heavily in chalk and I put a pin there. We're going to stop sewing right there and we're going to back tack. After we've sewn this in, we're going to go ahead and clip our corners. You only have a 1/4 inch seam allowance, so I doubt that you'll be able to trim much off. But go ahead and clip your corners, press the seam allowance towards your facing, and turn this to the wrong side. Okay, so I have my facing in there now. I have all of my corners clipped and it's pressed towards the inside of my dress. However, I said I was going to do understitching, and I am not going to do understitching because I remembered now that this whole dress is top stitched, and this top edge also gets top stitched. Now the directions tell you to go ahead and do that top stitching and then insert these two pieces together somehow. And like, yeah, I'm just not, for some reason I'm not really getting it. And I am just gonna say, I'm just gonna sew this front seam, this last front seam, and the facing seam together the way that I know how. And that is, I'm gonna flip this around. So this is the right side of my left panel, and without getting my dress twisted around, I'm gonna go ahead and place the opposing panel next to it like this. And you can see I've done my stay stitching along this edge and my clips, and I'm going to go ahead and put this along this edge just the same way we did the first one. Now this notch on this top edge, where we have this notch from our facing, needs to match up with this seam where the front of our dress meets this facing. So I'm just going to go ahead and pin that together and make sure we're matching there. Once we have this all pinned up, we're going to go back to our sewing machine and we're going to start at the bottom and stitch all the way up with our 3/8 inch seam allowance, and we're just going to sew right up to where these two seams meet. So right at this neck seam, and you're going to back stitch right there. Then I'm going to go ahead and finish this seam and press it towards the center of my dress. I now have that center seam sewn up, and I'm just going to say, you know, read these directions, because maybe you can figure out this corner better than I did. The way I did it was not particularly easy. Now that I've done it, I suspect I know what she was trying to say. So let's look at the inside. We're all sewn together here except for this piece right here, which is our facing. And I believe what she was saying in the first place is to pin this down between this, like do this first. So now what we're going to do is, I have this little flange from this side right here, and I'm just going to place it on top of my seam allowance. You can see on this side I've just folded that front edge under like 1/4 of an inch. Now I'm going to pin this together like this, and I'm just going to baste this together right here. Just top stitch from there to here with the basting stitch. And then when we go through, then we're going to top stitch this whole seam like we did all the others from here all the way up. And when we do, we're going to go right over that seam that we just basted together. Okay, I hope that makes sense. And then what we're going to do is just do our edge stitching all the way around our neck edges. And now we are going to take one of our sleeves, right side up, okay. Now we're just going to go sew that seam from underarm to underarm, and then we're going to serge that seam or finish it however you like, and do that same thing on the other side. The directions for putting in our pockets are different than the way I normally put in a inseam pocket. Because of that, there's a notch for your pocket on the front piece, but there isn't one on the back. We are not going to do it the way they are on the directions. We're going to do it the way I usually do it. So I'm going to match up my armpits, the front and the back, and match up this edge. And then I'm going to put a notch in the bottom piece. So there's now a notch in both pieces. And you can see I've already finished the edges of all 4 of my pocket bag pieces. Now I'm just going to lay them like this. And I'm going to match up this notch. There's a notch here on my pocket. I'm going to match that up with a notch on my dress. I'm going to pin that down, and I'm going to go ahead and sew that with a 3/8 inch seam allowance. I'm going to do that to all 4, so twice in the front and twice in the back. I'm going to sew this in, and then I'm going to finish this edge from here to here. Then I'm going to press this open this direction. I'm going to press that open like that. And on the front pieces only, I'm going to understitch, which means I'm going to stitch right along this seam line here. Once we have those pockets sewn in, actually I should say before we put those pockets in, I should have finished these side edges of my dress, because now what we're going to do is place them right sides together, and we're going to sew from the underarm down here to the top of the pocket. You're going to pivot, go around the pocket, back to here, pivot, and go straight down again. Now I will sort mine out so that those edges are finished, but before you put the pockets in, serge the full edge of the sides of your dress. Okay, then the very last thing we have to do is our hems. Hemming the sleeve is easy enough, so is hemming the hem, or the bottom, but I did want to point out, we did this little funky turn before, and we sewed this across like this. So now that you're going to do the rest of the hem, all you're going to do is trim this bit off and fold it to the inside like that. So from the right side, you'll have a nicely finished edge. Okay, so that is the whole thing. That is the 2 pegs. Obviously, I don't know if I said this anywhere in the tutorial. We did the round peg in this version. I was originally going to do the square peg, but then I saw Linda Lee's description on how to do that curved inset seam last week, and I really wanted to try it, so I ended up doing the curved seam. What else do I have to say? So yeah, the fabric options, I mean, you could use a ton of different fabrics for this. I would say to stick with something drapey because it's voluminous. I don't think a stiffer fabric is going to look great in this design. I think you're going to like lose a lot of the effect. The only other changes I would make to this dress in the next version I make is, for me, I just have straighter shoulders This dress actually has a very nice, like, slightly curved shoulder seam, but even though it's not very curved, it's too curved for my shoulders, so I have to straighten that out a little bit. I don't know if you can tell in the pictures, which I'm going to put up here, but it pops up a little bit on my shoulder right here, and that's just because the seam there is more curved than my shoulder is. That is an alteration that I do on a lot of things, particularly like raglan sleeve things. I always have to do that on. The other thing I would do is, you know, I felt like the two-piece front facing was overly complicated. So for me, I would just assemble the front piece and merge those two front facing pieces into one and just sew them on like a regular facing. I didn't especially like that seam in the facing here, probably because I didn't do it right, but in any case, a seam in your facing is actually just going to add bulk, and I didn't really, I mean, I could be wrong, I might be missing something, but I didn't feel like it added anything to the design of the dress, so I feel like for me, I would just make a one-piece facing in the front and be done with that. And let's see, I think that's it. I think this is a really cool dress. I love the options for playing with fabrics. In mine, I used one main fabric, the printed fabric, and then I used leftover silk pieces for the two inset pieces and the sleeves. But you could literally use a different fabric for each piece, which is actually what it looks like in the photograph on her website or on her Etsy shop. I really like the idea of using different colors for the sleeves or different prints. You could do a ton of different things with this. And that is it. I'm really happy that Pearl let us do this sew along. I hope everybody goes and checks out her shop and sees what else she has. And let me know below if you've made other of Pearl's patterns and if you have a favorite. I would love to hear about that. So, I will not be here for Friday sews this week, just because I am a little behind in some other sewing due to the fact that I was out sick last week with my COVID shot, which I'm completely recovered from, by the way, although that sore arm stuck around for a bit. So I'm just behind, and then of all things, my dog got sick, and I had to take my dog to the vet on Friday, and that ended up being like a 5-hour escapade, and of course that's the 5 hours when I would have been sewing. So it's okay. I don't really have much to catch up on this Friday anyway, so it's not a big loss. I will be back next Tuesday when our sew along is going to be Marcy Tilton for Vogue, and it's a Vogue pattern 1694. We'll be making the tunic version with the long sleeves. I do not have the next 4 patterns solidified in my head yet, but I will have them solidified by the time you see this, and I will post those in the show notes below. That is it for today, guys. Thank you so much again for stopping by. I really appreciate it, and I can't wait to see you again next week. Meanwhile, happy sewing and have a great week. Bye-bye.